I grew up in Syracuse, New York. Lived here most of my life. I did not grow up in an alcoholic family. My mom, I think, had one drink a year. It was a big deal. The hottest day in August, my dad would make her a Tom Collins and she'd sit out on the porch and drink it. And it was kind of an event because mom didn't drink. My maternal grandfather was an alcoholic and he ended up dying from complications of alcoholism. I never had a drink until I was 18 years old. Alcohol was not a big part of my life in my early adulthood. I had gotten drunk, but never considered having a problem with it. Until my middle 40s, I was working the night shift. I was living in Connecticut, isolated from my family, living alone, going to school to finish my bachelor's degree in nursing. It kind of just evolved. I would come home from work in the morning and have a glass of wine so that it would help me to go to sleep. One glass turned into two and turned into three, and it just kind of went from there. All of a sudden, I realized I was drinking a lot. It was kind of taking over my life. I couldn't stop. I was caught up in the addiction. I ended up telling a couple of friends and my brother and my sister. I ended up going to meetings for 3 months, and I didn't drink for 3 months. I thought, okay, well, I've got this licked. I'm in control now, I can drink like a regular person. Stopped going to these meetings and got right back in the old routine, to the point where I was drinking up to 20 liters of wine a week. I was at work one night and this gentleman came up to me. I knew he had a drinking problem, and he said to me one night, I haven't had a drink in 3 months, and I'm going to outpatient therapy. A light went on. I thought, wow, this is working for him. Maybe this is something I can do. My brother, he was the one person who just never let the whole idea go. He'd always call me up and he'd say, are you good? And I'd have to say no. I drank again. I told him about this whole thought about outpatient therapy. He sat down next to me and he took my hand and he looked me in the eye. He said, Donna, you have to do something. You have to promise me that you'll follow through. Because he said, I'm afraid you're gonna die. So I made him a promise that I would follow through. And that was a sacred promise to me. One morning after work, I ended up at Syracuse Behavioral Health. They got me in, they talked to me about the financial aspects. I talked to a nurse, I talked to a counselor, from the front desk ladies who signed you in when you came in for group, to the counselors, to the psychiatrists. I was treated with professionalism, with compassion, with respect. I've learned that addiction is not something that you really can beat on your own. You need people, you need ideas, suggestions, support. And you're with like-minded people. You are with people who understand your story, where you've come from. SBH. It's changed my life. It's saved my life. I wouldn't be where I am without it. I just feel like a new person. I definitely believe that my life has been transformed. I would not have these opportunities that are coming my way if I were still under the burden of my drinking addiction. I do take this one day at a time, but it's one good day at a time.
I was angry. I had a lot of resentments. My dad was actively using. I was so engrossed in like this whole lifestyle of everything being about the next batch, heroin, cocaine, weed, of spike, of whatever that could take me outside of myself. I began living with my aunt. I engaged in a lot of illegal activities. There's not one drug that I think that's out there right now that I hadn't tried or used. Life was totally unmanageable. I could no longer go and wash my clothes, right? Like I didn't have the will to go and wash my clothes anymore. Using became the most important thing for me at that point in my life. My dad began his journey in recovery around the time I want to say I was maybe 18. When I was struggling, when I was released from prison, he was the one person that like sprang into action. We had like one of those, how can I better assist you and what do you need from me kind of conversations. For me, that was one of those like aha moments where it's like, so this is how simple it can be if I make it this simple. I was at the lowest point of my life. I was homeless from couch to couch, but I knew that I had this little person coming. I remembered a lot of the feelings that I had when my dad wasn't present. It was something in me that was just like, I don't want this to be a repeat, of the relationship my dad and I shared early on. My daughter being born was like this blessing in disguise, so to speak, for me, because I was able to become more focused. I knew she would be here soon and I didn't want to be an absentee parent. So I decided to go back into SBH, this time with a lot more willingness and a lot more open-mindedness. I was able to connect with people. I was able to hear things that I had heard before, but I was listening this time. When I fell down, they were there for me again. SBH has really helped me. There's no simple way to put it. They essentially saved my life. I do enjoy life today. Like I'm not waking up sick. I'm not waking up my mind racing. Life is simple today. My journey has shown me effective ways of dealing with challenges. That's what addiction is. It's a challenge. With hard work, it can be overcome. My daughter still to this day plays a very large role in my recovery. My goal is to put her in a better position than I was, allow her to experience life in a way that I never was able to. That's the reason why I wake up. That's the reason why I chase my dreams today. Every day isn't a win, but most days are wins. Most days I finish good, I rest well, and I can wake up and face whatever challenges come the next day.
I am from Spring Hill, Florida. I come from a pretty good background. My parents are happy and still together. They did everything they could for me as a child, gave me every opportunity that was available to them. And despite all of these things, I ended up becoming an addict. After I graduated, there was no real clear direction or plan for me. I got into prescription painkillers. That was really the downfall for me. I really took the same philosophy that I had with my academic career towards my drinking and using. That being that if I was going to do it, I was going to be the best at it. I was going to do the most. I was going to go the hardest. I was going to have every superlative that I could. I was cold and shaking and my body hurt and I didn't know why. I remember being pressed up against our heater vent with a blanket over me and realizing this is because of the drugs. When I moved away from Florida to Colorado, I could no longer find prescription painkillers, but what I could find was heroin. It felt the same way, it alleviated my sickness. I would do HIT, pass out, wake up and do another HIT, pass out, wake up and do another HIT. I began doing new things in order to get my drugs that I'd never done before, selling my body for money. My parents wouldn't let me come back to the house. They wanted to protect my younger brother. They realized that there was nothing more that they could do for me and that they had to protect the one son that they still had. I cried and I begged and pleaded, and I told her that I was her little boy. She ended up compromising with me and allowing me to sleep on the back porch. She would go inside and make a sandwich, and she would cut it diagonally, and she would make me a cup of sweet tea, and she'd bring it out onto the porch and silently set it down next to me, and then she'd go back inside and she'd lock the doors behind her. I kind of went into this pattern of trying to get treatment and then relapsing, and trying to go back to treatment and then relapsing again. When I was first admitted into the detox at SBH, I realized that I was in a completely different kind of place than I had been in before. They were there to help me. These people truly cared about me and wanted to see me succeed. I had never been in a program before that had such a seamless continuum of care. Before, it was always, I was treated like a number, shuffled in and then shuffled out and on to the next one. If it wasn't for the fact that I went through the programs at SBH, that I went through the detox and the inpatient and the halfway houses and all the residential programs, if it wasn't for SBH, I don't know where I'd be today. I think I was always creative as a kid, but it wasn't until I was in recovery that I began to really explore painting. Sometimes I feel like my emotions could overrun me. Painting has given me a way to kind of mitigate them, to express them and give them meaning. Looking back at who I was and comparing that person to who I am today, it's not even recognizable. Today I recognize the importance of happiness. It was something that was missing from my life for a long time. And if in sharing my story, I'm able to affect even one person's life, then I will continue to share it until my voice gives away.